Blog Talk Radio.
Be advised, 928 associates with the suspect and the victim. West.
172, no water warrant.
You are listening to another edition of the Private Officer Talk Radio Network. Brought to you by Private Officer International, a security.
Welcome, everyone, to On the Legal Side, where we discuss the legal ramifications of our actions, what we do and what we don't do, how we act, how we're supposed to act. And this week, in part two, the wrap-up conclusion, we're going to be talking here about how all of the arrest, all of the private security personnel being charged and arrested in recent months and several years is starting to climb. And as we discussed in part one, 22 or 2,500 security officers arrested every year while on duty. That sounds like a huge number. It is a huge number. But honestly, in comparison with the 1.6 or even 2 million security workers in the U.S., that's less than, 10%, less than 5%, less than 2% even. So for some folks, they say, well, it's not that bad. But it is that bad any time that you get people in a position of protecting property and lives, those who are put in a position of authority being arrested, whether it be sworn law enforcement officers or private security. And that's what we're talking about today on this edition of On the Legal Side. Last time in week one, we spoke about recent arrest, how security officers on duty, and we're only talking about on duty, we're not talking about those who are on their own time, off duty, out of uniform, at their house or at the club or wherever. We're talking specifically in this today in this radio program about those on duty being arrested. And we talked about last time several security officers recently who have been charged with murder. One security officer on duty at a very exclusive condo killed 2 doctors just to rob them. A security officer also in Florida charged with murdering someone in his complex where he was security, again, to rob and rape that person. And just in the last 2 weeks, it's happened again, not once, not twice, but numerous times where security officers on duty have been arrested. In fact, in Las Cruces, New Mexico, a security officer working at a middle school has been charged with sexually assaulting and restraining a teacher. And he admits that it occurred. And this security officer has been charged with first-degree kidnapping, third-degree criminal sexual penetration, bribery of a witness, and criminal sexual contact. A security officer at a school? Really? A teacher? We've heard about the situations involving students, but you don't hear too much where they attack an adult. This is a unusual, albeit not, completely uncommon situation. This security officer is in serious doo-doo. He is locked up. They didn't even give him a bond because they felt he was that dangerous. Just in the last 2 days, a security officer in San Antonio arrested for sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl in an apartment complex where he was on duty. The 25-year-old has been charged with several felony counts after he allegedly had sexual relationships with a 12-year-old, and at one point, according to police, he recorded the encounter, the sex. Langley Park, Maryland, police there say an on-duty security officer raped a man. Police say that he found a man in a neighborhood and told him that it was a very dangerous neighborhood and that he needed to leave and that he would drive him out of the area and then rape him. This is not stuff we make up, folks. This is reality. This is life on the street. We have seen this occur time and time again. Let me just tell you in the last 10 days what's occurred. In Myrtle Beach, a security officer has been arrested for shooting into an occupied vehicle. He says the vehicle was trying to run him down. A school security officer in Indiana has been charged with raping a student inside the school where he was on duty. An on-duty Sacramento security officer has been charged with felony assault. A Queens, New York security officer has been arrested for downloading child porn numerous times while on duty. A New Orleans security officer is arrested for impersonating a police and tasing a man while on duty near Bourbon Street. An armored car security officer arrested for stealing ATM cash. This is not something we make up. This is reality. This is happening. Why? Why is it happening, you might say? Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, because there's just a lack of supervision. There's a lack of overwatch, of oversight. Every single profession has some level of supervision. It doesn't matter who you are. You've got a boss. You've got multiple levels of supervision and management. Unfortunately, it's not that way in the private security industry, at least not to the level that it needs to be. When I first got involved in private security, we had patrol supervisors, we had account supervisors, we had supervisors that were on our shift if we had enough personnel. We had all types of levels of supervision and management. And we had checks and balances. And in my own security company, we have multiple layers of checks and balances where we're able to not only know what's happening on the account, but to understand, know, and track the security officers' moves because it's very important. Wait. You don't trust me? You don't think that I'm doing my job? You don't think? Look, it's very important that we have accountability in our business. No different than any other job. Do you know if you work for an electrical service, a plumbing service, even I was just training an alarm company last week. They told me that everything they do is tracked. Not only do they have login system with their GPS phone, so when they leave to go to a call, when they arrive at a call, when they finish a call, everything gets put into their phone, into a tracking system. Their vehicle has GPS tracking. They can tell if they stop for 2 hours for lunch or where they stopped or if they've gone home and took a snooze. Security patrol cars. In some areas, these companies also track their movement of these vehicles and personnel. It's required. It's something that has to be done. Multiple levels of supervision is necessary in any industry, but certainly one where we're protecting lives and property, and we have an accountability. We need to memorialize what's going on. The reason why we're seeing so many security officers, and it's not always their fault, really, but we're seeing so many security officers arrested for crimes while on duty because of a lack of management oversight, a lack of people checking up on them, no checks and balances, No one really caring, just throwing that person out on the account, getting a body out there so we can build that company and make some money. That's where the industry is, and that needs to change. We have to understand that it's not just about keeping tabs on our employee, but it's about liability and culpability. As we know, there are 4 different levels of tort law which deals with liability and culpability for businesses. Doesn't matter if you're a security business or if you're in the car wash business or the painting business. As employers, we're liable. And even though some employers say, well, that's what we got insurance for, and they'll just deal with it now, you know, sooner or later your insurance will be canceled if you have too many claims. 4 levels of liability and culpability for businesses include strict liability. That means there's no question, no defense. There's no way out. This is what it is. Strict liability. Intentional liability. It's where you intentionally, knowingly did something and with no regard as to what might happen. So, for instance, there was a case a number of years ago where a security officer, and this is a gospel truth now, this is gospel truth. A security officer was put at an amusement park. It was supposed to be an armed account. They gave him an airsoft pistol, and it wasn't that the security officer did it on his own. No, actually his company gave him the airsoft pistol because he wasn't qualified to carry a firearm for legal reasons, and they put him on the account. Now, everything went very well for several weeks, in fact, for several months, and toward the end of that season at this amusement park, it was nearing the end of the season, early September, there was a robbery. There was a robbery, armed robbery of the cash area, and the armed security officer on duty, you know what he did? He did nothing. Nothing. And his clients, the people that were at the amusement park on site, were like, you got a gun, you got a gun. And he crouched down to save himself from being shot, and I would too. I got a BB gun, an airsoft. I can't return fire. And he did nothing. And it came out in a lawsuit that it was an intentional situation where he put, the security company put that unarmed person out there and disguised him as being armed, and a lot could have gone wrong. Fortunately for the amusement park and the security company, the armed robbers just wanted the cash and left. No shots fired, nobody injured, no one killed. Thank God that's how it ended, but it could have ended a lot worse. That was intentional on the part of the security company. We have negligent liability, where we're negligent. We do something recklessly. We do something without any thought. We cause someone to be injured or killed. And the company, the security companies, you know what? When you put people on the account and you don't do any type of supervision, you don't do any type of overwatch, and you leave them to do whatever they want, and they do something wrong, they do something illegal, that's negligent. And you could be sued, and you will be sued. And it happens several thousand times a year. I kid you not. In the U.S., there are several thousand lawsuits where security officers and security companies and businesses are sued because something related to their physical security. And last but not least, we have vicarious liability. Vicarious liability is just that. It means that the supervisor, the owner, is completely liable for everything that your employee does, just like a parent is liable for everything that their child does. Whether we're there, whether we told them to do it, whether or not we had any control over what they did, we do have control. It's our job to tell them what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and to ensure that that's being done. Since when Does an employer put an employee on a job site and just back away? Okay, everything's grand, everything's going to be okay, and he'll do the job, she'll do the job exactly how I told her. No. Even your best employee sometimes becomes a little lax when no supervisors show up, no one is checking them out, there's no check and balances, even they fall asleep, even they goof off, even they do things they wouldn't necessarily normally do. You know, if a supervisor was there, it's human nature. It's unfortunate. Not everyone is like that, but it does happen. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish up part 2 of On the Legal Side, talking about employee liability and culpability, and really just having a good overwatch of our employees.
Federal Aviation Administration wants you to fly your drone responsibly. Avoid flying your drone near other aircraft, especially near airports. Fly your drone below 400 feet. Always keep your drone in sight. If you see a safety issue involving drones, contact local law enforcement immediately. Fly smart. Fly safe. Have fun.
Now, I've heard time and time again, security officers, those assigned to various clients, businesses, schools, I've heard them say, I don't need anyone to watch me. I don't need a babysitter. And I understand that philosophy. But there are a lot of reasons why employers of all sorts and types of businesses keep an eye on their employee. They have to memorialize what they're doing for liability, for insurance, and for billing reasons. We want to make sure that we're able to prove that we were there and did the job that we're supposed to. I remember a number of years ago a security company who lost a $500,000 contract because they couldn't verify, they had no way of proving via documents or anything else that their security staff had been on that construction site and doing their jobs. They had numerous security officers on this huge construction site of this huge complex. But they couldn't prove for the whole month that they were there. In fact, the workers, the contractors, the vendors, and people who were working on the site said they never saw security. They never saw security in the overnight hours. They never saw security officers in the evenings when they were supposed to be there. Very seldom, they said, did they see anybody. They even thought there was no security supposed to be on that construction site. And so, guess what? That security company went without being paid. They couldn't prove that their staff was there. And they lost thousands of dollars. In the old days, of course, if you are an old-timer like me, you remember the DTEX clocks. You remember punching the keys. And that wasn't a foolproof system, of course. I've told the stories before how some security officers were able to take the keys off the walls and bring them into the security or guard shack and just sit there and stay warm and punch the keys, from inside there and take the keys back at the end of the shift and hang them up until they got caught. Nowadays, when you're making a guard tour or a security patrol, there are automated methods of keeping track of those patrols. We have numerous bar scans and codes. We have little applications on our phones where we can scan in our checkpoints. We have electronic gadgets that records our every moves. We have GPS on our phones, and some security companies use a tracking software that lets them know if you're on the 5th floor or if you're hanging out in the security office. And that's all well and good because you know what? It's really for your benefit. What if you fell, hit your head, and was injured at 2 o'clock in the morning? Nobody's there. You may or may not make it. and the next morning they could come in and find you deceased. It does happen. There was a security officer in West Virginia at a mine who was driving and went off the road into a pond over the weekend. There was no one working over the weekend. They didn't find him until Monday. He was, of course, dead. They thought actually that he'd gone home until someone saw a part of the vehicle sticking out of a pond. By then it was too late, unfortunately. So there are a lot of good reasons why we should supervise our employees and why our employees should want some type of control and contact and communication with the outside world, with the supervisors. Today, in our world of technology, there is no reason we can't track or shouldn't memorialize that our security officers are on duty and are healthy, that they're not injured. We have all sorts of devices and applications we can put on our phones. We have free two-way radio communications. We don't have to even pay anything. These are apps that are downloaded to your phone. You can communicate with your employees 24/7 around the world free. I use several of them, in fact, for our companies, and just last week talked to one of our POI members and representatives in Brazil. We were on our two-way in Brazil. I'm in the U.S., they're in Brazil. It was clear as day, like we're on, in the same room. It was clearer than some cell phones, to be honest with you, but this was a free app. So there's no reason in today's world why we can't or why we shouldn't have some good oversight on our employees. We're able, through technology, to track the individual, to track the vehicle, to be able in real time to see where they are making their patrols, to have digital patrol checks. Our cell phones have GPS. We should have supervisors making physical spot checks on a regular basis and memorializing those spot checks and being able to verify and to show that we were on the premise and that everything was okay, that security staff was there. We're in a world today of intense, litigious, it's very litigious in the U.S. Everyone is willing to sue everyone else for very little reason, and oftentimes the courts today are giving them huge, huge judgments. $40 million, $23 million, $100 million for a case that doesn't seem like it's worth $100. Checks and balances provide supervision. It lessens the liability. It works for many companies, plumbing companies, electrical companies, painting companies. Police officers have checks and balances. Most major areas now are GPS, all of the two-way radios, all of their vehicles, fire, EMS, and law enforcement are all tracked through a CAD, a computer-aided dispatch system. They know when the officers stop and take a break, when the fire trucks are someplace they're not supposed to, and it's all for liability purposes as well as accountability. So if it's not too good for them, why should it be too good for security personnel, for our school officers, for public safety? We need to be able to account for their whereabouts. It works for officers and companies. It proves where they were. It proves that they were on duty. It proves that they provided the services that were contracted. It proves that they were or were not someplace else. How about a situation where you do have somebody at an apartment complex or a condominium or hotel that says, hey, your security officer sexually attacked me or robbed me or assaulted me? You'll be able to look right there on the data and say, oh, no, he didn't. At 7:12 p.m., he was on the opposite side of the property. He was no place near where you say he was. we're able in real time account for the whereabouts of our personnel and prove their innocence. Why do you think more and more police agencies have gone to the body-worn cameras? Not to catch them in a lie, but to benefit them when someone files a complaint. He abused me. He cussed at me. He swore at me. He assaulted me. He stopped me for no reason. Well, guess what? I've got the video. I can show right now that you are lying. Private security officers in the U.S. and in other countries have also gone to that type of technology. And I think it's a thing that you're going to see more and more of. You're going to see more physical security officers at hospitals, colleges, on patrols, apartments, hotels, wearing body cameras, because it really is for their benefit. It's for their protection. And what if a security officer is assaulted or, God forbid, killed? That body camera is evidence. We need to have more overwatch. We need to have more supervision. We need to be able to protect ourselves, our clients, and our officers. It's very important that we understand that we're in a day and age when our employees are on the job. It's our responsibility to supervise them and to protect them. It's not up to the client. It's not up to law enforcement. It's not up to somebody else. It's up to us. It's our responsibility. And there's nothing bad or negative about that. And I don't know why so many security officers and so many companies are, shying away from that. It's just like law enforcement when body cams were first introduced. It's not negative. It actually can be very positive. That's going to conclude this episode from the legal side. On the legal side, we're the legal side. The legalities of what we do is extremely important, and you need to take them that way. Until the next time, folks, be safe, be blessed, and we'll see you back here on the radio.